Hey everybody, welcome to the Aeon 14 podcast. My name is Michael Cooper and I'm joined by the fantastic team behind Aeon 14. So why am I doing the intro today? It's because it's Canada Day, and on behalf of all my fellow Canadians, enjoy the summer, it's going to be gone soon. That's pretty much the motto of Canada in the summertime. It's also early for James, he's out on the West Coast. We want to make sure he had time to wake up today, as is Jen. But Jen looks chipper all the time, so it's fine. As usual, we'll be talking about all the Aeon 14 things, books, science behind the series, ideas, cool stuff, anything else readers want to hear about. We have some folks on today who weren't on last time. I'm stoked about that. To make Aeon 14 the sci-fi that you know and love, and every one of them is passionate about the characters and stories end up in your imaginations. Then I'm not a big fan of labels, and apparently I'm way better speaking when I'm off script. So what I want to have everybody do is say what they bring to Aeon 14 as opposed to what they do. Otherwise, you'll just sort of, everybody's preconceived notions like, this is your job, so you must just do your job. But everybody does a lot of other different and interesting things. So we're going to kind of go that way. And I'm going to start with Jen because she's top left on my screen. So what do you bring to Aeon 14, Jen?
I was really hoping you weren't going to start with me, not going to lie. I do lots of things, I like to think. I make sure the characters stay true to their characters, so I make sure their dialogue is in line with who they are, and I make sure that you don't reuse names a bunch of times, so we don't end up with like Anna's in Aeon 14. And I haven't always been the best at that. We still have a lot of Terrys.
Poor Terry. You're always picking on Terry.
Because there's so many.
There are 7 Peters,
Oh, well, okay. Thank you for proving my point. So see, I've gotten better at that, catching those, realizing they're not the same person. And I come up with cool ideas for merchandise that will hopefully be coming out and about soon. And I've come up with a lot of Rika titles, like most of them.
It's true.
So, yeah, there you go. That's me. And I love Rika way more than I should.
Next up on my screen is Lisa.
Hi. What do I bring to Aeon 14? Probably science-y stuff and pilot-y stuff. And I don't know. And cat stuff. Jen is my
other half, you can say it.
She's my other half. Together, we make Janissa. So in case you wondered where the Janissa name came from, and which ones, was it a Rika book?
It's a Rika book, yeah.
Yeah, so that's us.
Yeah. So. Yeah, at one point in our chat, they combined into one person and declared themselves to be Janissa, and then the character appeared in a Rika book. So.
Yeah, Jen's my soul sister.
That's it? That's all you got, Lisa?
I don't know.
It can be. I just want to make sure you were done.
I think the realistic flight mechanics and pilot speak is a very valuable contribution.
Yeah. More than once Lisa said, that sounds really stupid. No pilot would ever say that.
Exactly. Having a resident pilot is pretty awesome, I have to say.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And radiologist. Who's basically like, no, none of that stuff works the way you think it does. Lisa, I think I haven't mentioned this last time, but Lisa, of course, is the only person on the team who's actually operated a particle accelerator, so she's got that going for her.
Yeah.
All right, next up on my screen is Jenny, who doesn't have video today, but we'll get the dulcet tones of Jenny's voice.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi. So what do I bring now? I just realized you're all calling it Aeon 14. I've been calling it Aeon 14 in my head for like a couple of years now. So that's really strange.
You're pronouncing it right. We're all pronouncing it wrong.
So I've been working on the colonization of New Canaan. And I don't know, what do I bring to that as a writer? I'm really fascinated by colonization of new planets. I have a bit of a background in biology and botany, so I think those probably come out quite a lot in both of the books, the main book that I've written and the subsequent books I'll be writing. And then I leave it to Michael to finesse the higher technology that the universe excels in.
Cool. Yeah, Jenny, I didn't know Jenny had a lot of biology background, but upon reading Carthage, I was like, wow, she really knows this stuff. This is really cool. It's an angle that we don't have. So.
I told you she wasn't fudging it.
Well, I didn't think she was. I was just like, if she is fudging it, she's doing a very good job. But all right. So next.
Yeah. Well, sorry. Carry on.
Oh, you can reply. That's fine.
No, I was just going to say it's like something I think that science fiction sometimes glosses over a little bit. But of course, if we ever do end up colonizing new planets, it's going to be absolutely vital that we get that right. Mm-hmm. So I'm really interested in that.
You mean it won't be like the Alien movies where we just take our helmets off and breathe deeply as the alien air?
I actually had to turn Prometheus off. I couldn't watch it. The scientists were so dumb. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah,
I couldn't watch it.
Yeah,
there's actually a lot of really good mocking memes that have come out of the Prometheus movie. One of them is, if you ever watched the show Cinema Sins, whenever someone like runs in a straight line away from something, they call it the people that's running away. Because in Prometheus, like this thing is falling on her, and it's not that wide, but she runs in a straight line and gets crushed by it. So yeah, that movie, not even the science in that movie is just full of like, what? Really, you guys were the smartest people they put in the spaceship? Really? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Ooh, look, there's an evil-looking worm. Now I'll just take my glove off and just walk over to it. Yeah, right.
What could go wrong?
Tanis would never do that.
No, she'd just pull a gun out and shoot it.
Yeah, she would. Sure. All right, James.
What do I bring to Aeon 14? I did want to say that Aeon 14 is how we know who's part of the cult or not when they pronounce it. So, Jenny, you've been inducted.
Okay.
I got a review just recently on Lysis Flame that said that the book had brought family to Aeon 14, and that meant a lot to me because that was something that I spent a lot of time thinking about, and like what relationships will be like in this time period, and what, if we still have 10 people stuck together in a ship, isolated in the middle of nowhere, what that's like. And it's fun, but it's also not fun sometimes. And then I guess with my background, I love military SF, but when it comes to military fiction in general, I think of it more of all the I don't know, like Tim O'Brien's Things They Carried, or Little Yellow Birds, or like the other effects of what it is to be in the military and kind of live with that. And so I definitely want to write something that is fun, but I'm also thinking about those things, like the effects of living in constant war or living in constant dread of war. And so anyway, those are the things that I think about, while also trying to keep it fun and exciting. So yeah, that's what I bring.
I don't want to take away from your review, but I wonder, like, did they not read anything with Tanis and Joe and Carrie
right.
and Sandy
yeah, exactly.
and Helena? And I mean, there's family in Aeon 14.
Oh, I know.
Maybe not like a lot. They're maybe not all together all the time because they're kind of spread out. But I don't know. That made me kind of go, wait a minute.
It is a different sort of family experience, though. Because, like, for example, New Canaan, I have the kids growing up, but I do it very quickly. Whereas James spent a lot of time with a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old kid on a ship. So there is that, but yeah, it is true. There's lots of other kids. We can get a little bit of Rika's background. Chuck tells a little bit about her background a little bit in this story, but when she was a kid in Bro's gang, I named him Bro.
Of course you did.
As in, come at me?
Yeah, exactly. Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro. Nice.
No worries about doubling up on names there, so that's good.
Exactly. There you go. All right, Andrew.
Hi. So I'm Andrew, and I do a lot of the covers. And one of the things I've brought to the series, and I know everyone is deeply grateful for this, is the Shiny Heiny. So, that purple ass on the Perseus Gate covers, that's me. Sorry.
Well, not you, I hope.
I took that photo, and I edited those pictures. But anyway, I mean, more seriously, I hope that I bring. Obviously, when you read the text, you bring it to life in your own mind. But hopefully, I'm providing some visuals and I'm providing some kind of life to the character beyond what is put into the text by the amazing authors on this podcast. That's me.
So I think something I wanted to kind of highlight with everybody talking to is that everybody that works on AN14, they're all fans as well. And they've all read the books. Maybe not all of the books. I think Lisa actually holds the record for reading the most books. In fact, I don't know if there's anything Lisa hasn't read at present. Except for maybe Whole Latte Death. That might be the only thing you've not read.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Yeah. Otherwise, Lisa has read everything. Because, of course, she also provides JIT feedback as well, typos and final proofreading and stuff like that. So, and she's one of the best ones at that, too. So, go Lisa. But yeah, even Andrew's read the books, which a lot of times cover authors don't get authors don't get their cover artists to read their books.
No.
They have to describe it. So the fact that Andrew reads the books and he can bring aspects of the characters and things they've done into the story is really awesome. And of course, then James and Jenny have also read a number of the books. Although, I've been cracking the whip over James, and he's got a full-time job and a kid and whatnot, so he might be a little bit behind right now. But I suppose we could forgive him. And then Jen has read almost all of the books too, even a lot of the ones she hasn't edited. She's gone through as well.
I'm still working on. I haven't read the Perseus Gate ones, and I haven't gotten to read any of Lissa, and I really want to read Lissa. I really do.
But especially because you've edited the Starl and Fugia.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so you kind of know the universe. I am sending you on Monday the Perseus Gate season 1 books. So when you go on your road trip in August, you can read them on the road if you want.
Yay! Real books.
I'm thinking about you, honest. Really, it's all about you.
I have to catch up to Lisa. I can't let her hold the record.
For a second there, Lisa, you look like you were frozen.
Oh.
You're not.
No, she's just very still.
Yeah. One of the things, that Andrew brings, I think, is at least to me as a writer, is I look at the cover and it's a huge inspiration for me as I write.
Oh, thank you.
So,
have I done any of the covers you've written?
The Enfield Genesis. Whoa.
Whoa.
Hello. Back.
Cat attack.
Yeah, you did the Alpha Centauri and Proxima Centauri.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew doesn't see the names on the covers when he does them.
No, because I hand that off and you put the names on the covers, so I never know who's writing the book.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah, those ones. Lisa has the privilege of having one of the few male covers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, great stuff.
All right, so
not a hardship to look at it.
She picked the model too, so I think you picked the model, right? Yeah, you did. Yeah, I sent Lisa off. So yeah, we'll go through a couple of updates and then we'll get on to our sort of our Q&A section. The pre-orders that are up right now, we've got the next book coming out is Rika Infiltrator, which I'm as soon as we're done talking, we get back to slaving away over that, which really isn't a hardship at all, to be honest. And then after that, the next one up is Jenny Green's Carthage, which I think you guys are really going to enjoy. It's a very, I wouldn't say it's not written like it feels like an AN14 book, but it feels a little more like an Anne McCaffrey book when you're getting onto one of the planets and really getting to know the. Anne McCaffrey always did a lot of the biology of the planets that she went to and stuff like that. And I feel like it has a real vibe like that, which I like a lot because Anne McCaffrey's science fiction is still my favorite science fiction of all time. I was actually just chatting with a fan about the other day, and we were both fanning over various Anne McCaffrey books that no one else knows about, like the Caluria and stuff like that. So yeah. So
I believe the proper term is geeking out. You were geeking out over Anne.
I was going to say fangirl by accident, and then I'm like, oh crap, I'm not fangirling. I wear my Wonder Woman shirt here today, so you never know. And then after that, we've got T wasn't able to join us because this time we did it like 2 a.m. for T. We're just making life difficult for her. We've got people spread across the globe here, so it gets difficult to line up.
We are international.
Yeah, but Deathmark is coming up, and that's the one where Narishka actually gets a mission from Tanis and it intersects with the part we saw in Attack on Thebes. And then following that is going to be Proxima Centauri, Lisa's book, where we see Jason and crew go to Proxima Centauri, which if you don't know is Alpha Centauri is actually a 3-star system, and Proxima is the red dwarf star that's actually the closest star to us. Whereas Alpha Centauri A is a little bit further away, and in the books that one is actually called Rigel Kentaurus, which is a term. Rigel Kentaurus is actually the original name for the Alpha Centauri star system, I believe. So there's little fun bits like that in there. And now I can't remember what's up next. I'm supposed to know this stuff. Oh, this book called Fallen Empire, which I guess has this Tanis character in it, is coming out later in August. And then right on its heels is going to be, I'm drawing a blank here. Oh yeah, the Tanis Pritchard's prequels, Operative and Blackest Night. And then somewhere in the middle of that is the Proteus Bridge, which is going to be so James wrote 2 prequel novellas for the Lyssa series, which focus on Nagoba Starl and Fugia Wang. And is it Fugia or Fugia? Fugia.
Yeah, you'd say it fast.
Fugia. All right, cool. I've been saying that wrong in my head the entire time.
I have too. You're not alone.
Excellent. So James wrote 2 prequels, and we're actually going to extend those and expand upon them. And it's going to be a full-length novel. It'll be probably like close to 350, 400 pages long. So it's going to be a full novel that has a lot of the backstory, which would be really cool because you can see with the way that Starl and now I'm not going to say her name anymore.
Fugia.
You should just call her Wong.
Yeah, it's Wong. The Starl and Wong got going because you can see it in a lot of later books. Like they had this history and they were referring to events. So now you can get to learn a lot more of that. So that's what's coming out in the near future. I've probably missed something because there's 1,000 things coming out, and I've also worked.
Fan fiction book happening?
There is.
Yeah, the fan fiction.
I don't have the exact date for it yet because not everything's done being written.
Got it.
I'm still going through them as well. But actually, the stories I've gone through are really cool. In fact, there's I think 3 of them are centered around the mechs and the Genevian mechs and the Marauders and whatnot. And one of the guys, James Hobenreich, hopefully I didn't butcher your name, buddy, wrote a story about another group of mech mercenaries that are fighting against the Nietzscheans. And at the end of his story, they actually get to Sepe, which is where Rika just was. So now there's this other group of mechs that want to join up with the Marauders that are chasing after them. And I'm actually going to bring that into the Rika story. So basically, he's kind of like written a prequel for stuff that's actually going to come into the Rika story. And I'm just going to say one thing, space dragons.
Yes, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, mechanized space dragons. I mean, really, if you can like build massive stuff in space, eventually someone's going to build a space dragon, right? I mean, this is going to happen.
Yeah,
it's actually almost kind of, it's one of those things where it's like, why hasn't this happened yet in the books? Then you encounter stuff like that. Someone really would have made a space dragon by now. I'm positive. I really like space dragons. Yeah, so that's what's going on. I've got a lot more books, as you can see behind me here. Like wonderful books like this one by Lisa.
Yay!
Print.
I'll recognize that cover.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, see, Andrew, look, you did this.
Yeah, I did that.
I love that cover. It's beautiful.
It's pretty cool. And it's like really gets into the whole sort of like I mean, Alpha Centauri really turned out to be a lot about the AIs, which was really cool. So it's very sort of about the early evolution of all these things. Yeah, so I'm putting all those up on the Etsy store bit by bit. And then if you get the newsletter, which you have got today, well, yesterday, probably when you're seeing this, or sometime in the past, because you can see this anytime in the future, which is amazing if you think about that. The Etsy store has a bunch of signed copies up, and I'll be actually getting all of these up there bit by bit as things you can buy as signed copies. And if you live outside the United States, you can always reach out to me and ask about doing a sort of combined shipping, because Etsy right now, it gives you shipping on each of them, so it costs like $1,000 to mail something to the UK. So I can do combined shipping if you live outside the US and you want to do that.
Part of me would love a little shelf of Aeon 14, kind of, maybe the central series. Just, I did those. I did those covers.
I was looking at your bookshelf earlier. I'm like, there's a spot that could fit a bunch of Aeon 14 books right in there.
Yeah. Where is it? There.
Yeah, right. All right. So we're going to move on to the main event, which is asking James all sorts of questions. Probably some will come to me too, because a couple of fans had questions they want to have asked me. But we're going to sort of round robin them. Everybody's going to get to select something they want to ask James. And of course, this is because Lissa's Flame just came out this past Thursday, which wrapped up the Sentience Wars Origins series, and now sets us up to get into Sentience Wars Solar War 1, which is going to be at least 5 books long, maybe longer. It depends how long James wants to slave away over it. Although James and I are going to do, it's not written in stone yet exactly how it's going to work out, but we're going to do 2 separate sort of interwoven storylines. He's going to write the storyline that follows the characters that you already know, and I'm going to write a storyline that follows someone else involved in the Sentience Wars. We're going to weave them together, kind of like The Expanse, little James S.A. Corey style there.
Well, that's
go ahead.
The challenge with the Sentience Wars is being able to get a human story and then the epic scale of everything that's going to be happening. So it's going to be huge.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. I mean, really to think about, like, imagine everything that happened in World War II and now make that way bigger. That's the story that's got to be told here, which is a lot like what happened in the Orion War, but we're going to try and do this one without writing 17 extra series to tell the story. We're going to try and keep it somewhat contained so that it gets done.
I don't know. Fans might complain about that.
What if we don't make it?
They'd like to have, more.
Well, I think one of the things that we can keep adding in stuff too. People want to know about particular characters' backstories or events and whatnot. Like I know that we're talking about writing another prequel, which will take. There's one of the things that happens before the war kicks off in earnest is an attack on Vesta, which is an asteroid. So James and I've been talking about writing that. And I've actually, if you guys remember in the latest Tanis story, it alludes to another battle that happened on Vesta between the Sentience Wars, sort of a lull in the middle of it. So another battle on Vesta happened there. So there's a lot of like little things that went on throughout the stories that we can fill in. So as fans, you guys can also just say, like, I want to know more about this, and maybe we'll write a book about it. So who wants to go first with asking James questions?
I do.
So you didn't want to talk about yourself first, but you want to talk about James first. Is that how it goes?
Well, no. Yes. I much prefer to talk to other people about other people. So James, I haven't gotten to dive into a lot of your books. I've seen some of your beginning, like, prequel stuff, but I kind of want to know what your influences are, like where you take this the best way. You have a weird brain, and it's really fun to be in it. And I wonder how you have filled it to come up with this stuff. Like, where do you draw your influence from?
Well, my background, I joined the Army when I was 17, so that is just a huge part of growing up, but then always hated the fact that I was in the Army, so was always looking for ways to just get in trouble. Which is funny because I ended up being an officer, but I learned a lot of bad habits in the Army. And like, just the thing that struck me about, like, when I first went to basic training is just how many characters I met, how many people from, throwing this white kid from a lumber town in Oregon into, a mishmash of people from Chicago and LA and New York and Louisiana. And somehow everybody figures out how to get along and not kill each other, and then all do the same thing, together, because you've got, big stuff you need to get done. And so that's where a lot of it, I don't know, comes from, like, just weird senses of humor that you get when you're stuck in a place with a bunch of people that, don't want to be there. And so, I mean, even now I left the Army. I spent 5 years working in retail management, which again is like, a public place with thousands of people coming in, and the kind of like weird, wacky stuff that people do in a store situation. Like, I love the show Superstore because actually I think it does a great job of showing all the weird little things that people do in stores all the time. And then now I work on a college campus in law enforcement. So again, it's a mix of like that bureaucracy of things that people have to be held accountable while you're still working with students who all have their really interesting ideas about, how the world is and how they want it to be. And so all that stuff is, I don't know, that's kind of stuff that I'm thinking about a lot of the times. Like, even in the Army, like I worked in air defense, so I think it's funny that we have a pilot, and then we have in the Army what we call a duck hunter. So I shot things down, and so when we talk about like, I spent a lot of time doing a form of airspace control, but it was more about how we watch aircraft and missiles, so we can decide if we're going to blow them up or not.
Yeah, that's a really comforting thought from this
I know.
side of fence.
Yep. And so like even there, like I fired Patriot missiles. I've fired Stinger missiles. I've got to do a lot of testing when I first went on active duty as a lieutenant. I was in a test unit, and so we did what sounds sexy, when you say it. Like we were testing the new version of Patriot that shoots down missiles, but it was actually just incredibly boring sitting in a control van watching a radar screen all day long. So you're basically just finding ways to screw off while you're there out in the middle of the desert. And so we'd just play pranks on each other and, just things that you would do. So that's the kind of stuff when it comes to writing, especially something as technical and imaginative as Aeon 14. Like my first thought is like, okay, we've got nano. That's awesome. We've got picotech. How am I going to prank somebody with this? How am I going to, like, what am I going to do with my flow armor to, prank my buddy or find a way that, it's going to get sweaty and filthy and it might look cool in the picture, but then how are we going to, make all the ways that people would mess with it, when humans get involved in that kind of stuff. So
we don't talk about the prank people play with flow armor.
I know.
Those go bad places really quick.
So that's the kind of stuff that really fascinates me. Like I love technology, and then I love what happens when humans get involved with it. And then also the idea, which is something I really wanted to bring to the Sentience Wars, is that you could have like one part, one element of humanity has amazing tech, and then there's always going to be one element that does not. The future is here, but it's not evenly distributed. So you're going to have one person with amazing mods, and they're practically a superhero like Tanis, and then another person that was born on Krunya Station, as an orphan that had to scratch and crawl their way up, to get the things that they have. And so that on a macro level, that's the stuff that really fascinates me too.
There, by the way, was the correct pronunciation of the word that looks like Kruithni.
Yeah.
It's actually Kruinya. So, that's what we get for naming things after real stuff. That's a real asteroid, by the way. That's one of the reasons why it features so heavily in the book is Kruinya is actually referred to as Earth's second moon, because from Earth, it looks like it orbits us.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really. Toro actually does that too. Toro looks like it orbits the Earth, but it doesn't. So there's your fun science fact for this part of the presentation. All right, who else has a question?
Okay, I do. So James, Michael is he's a method, you've heard of method actors. Well, Michael said that he's a method writer, and that his wife is ready for him to finish the Katrina books because it can get kind of intense. What kind of a writer are you?
I have had to become, T accused me when she read Lissa's Dream. Now the word just went out of my head that like basically I must follow like a very strict process when I write, because different parts of the book were hitting like specific whatever beats that she expected as an editor, and that's something I have had to learn to do. Like I've learned to outline. I go into I'll break down, and maybe that comes from the Army as well, or just project management, because okay, I know I want a book with 100,000 words. I know exactly how many chapters I want. I want those chapters to be 2,000 words each. And so immediately you break that down into, so we got 50 chapters, and here's what I can get done in those. And then once you get to that point, it's like, all right, in this chapter, I need these things to happen. So I'll actually go into it where, like, just from the plot standpoint, like I kind of going through the stuff I want to happen, then going back through it from the character perspective where, okay, here's the character. Am I forcing them to do something they wouldn't necessarily want to do? And then even how do they start the chapter with this emotion, and what emotion do I want them to come out with? So I'm prescriptive. That's the word that I was trying to think of, which T used as kind of a dirty word, but that's because I have not a lot of time to write. So when I've got an hour, I need to get 2 chapters done. I need I need them to do the things I need to do, you know? So sometimes I do go into it not feeling it, you know, and then I'll come out like mad or happy or, you know, whatever, psyched, you know, especially when I'm really into it and excited. Then yeah, I guess it gets to be method, but I got to force myself to get there, if that makes sense, you know? And then also I'm just constantly dealing with distractions. So like, like getting into it. And then I've actually learned even to like stop myself like mid sentence, so that I can get back into it if I need to. Who do we just see, Jen?
That is my giant dog, Charlie. Speaking of distractions, it's this guy.
I think it's a lot of readers might not know this, but writers have very different ways that they write.
Yeah.
There's folks called plotters, and there's like extreme plotters who like they write out every single scene ahead of time. They'll write like a 10,000 word document. And most books are between 50 and 100,000 words. So we're talking something that's like as much as like a tenth of a book. That's their outline. There's other authors like me who have like 3 bullet points about what the book's going to be about, and I just sort of go at it. Like when people say,
the word is pantser.
The word is pantser, yeah.
Flying by the seat of
Yeah, and that's what I do. As the book progresses, the list of bullet points actually grows of things that need to happen in the story. But yeah, really, it's like the current Rika book. I'm like, the title is Rika Infiltrator, so she should probably infiltrate something. Like that's kind of. Now, of course, I know where she was, and I know where I need her to go. So I know that this will be, it'll be after the last book, and she'll be XYZ with these resources, and I need her to end up somewhere else. So, but I can't tell you because that would be spoilers. But that's how I go. But I think Andrew's also a writer, by the way, if folks didn't know that. But I'm curious, Andrew, how do you do? Are you a pantser or a plotter?
No, I'm definitely a plotter. Basically I write out a kind of paragraph of what I want the book to be, and then go from there and just expand it and break it out into chapters. So I end up with usually I'll probably end up with 3 pages roughly, each like a paragraph. So that's chapter 1, chapter 2. Although for my latest book, which is the first in a new series, because I've gone from kind of urban fantasy to space fantasy, and I'm introducing spaceships and technology. I've ended up writing an awful lot more because it's like, well, how does this work? So yeah, it's kind of So basically a plotter, but yeah, it's
not quite like James, where James is like, I have 50 chapters and they shall be this long.
No. I never work out ahead how many chapters it's going to be or anything like that. I just kind of, figure out what happens next and then what happens next, and try and end, if possible, each chapter up at a kind of a cliffhanger that makes you go, ooh, what happens next? So basically is what I try to do. And when it reaches the end, it reaches the end. So.
Well, I'm still trying to do that too. I guess one thing that from the beginning that kind of freaked me out was the idea that I was taking on a huge project that I had to deliver. And so that's doing these things to make sure I get it done was like really, really important. Like that from the very beginning when Michael and I first started working together, even it's like, I'm committing to do this thing and it must be done. And I know Michael kind of jokes like, well, I'll just write it, and yeah, maybe okay, but I'm not going to put you in the lurch like that,
No, I appreciate that. I mean, it is like, it's because you're putting it out there and it's going to be in front of a lot of people and it's got to get done. It's like when you do any kind of project management, you try and break it down into the smallest tasks that you possibly can, and then you complete those tasks.
Okay, I have a question actually based on that. So James, given that you're basically writing for Michael, do you prefer doing that, writing for somebody else, or do you have your own kind of stuff? And do you, what's your preference? What do you like doing? Is it more? Do you feel more responsibility working for Michael as opposed to doing your own stuff? That kind of thing.
I lucked into this in a time when I actually I'd written one book that was going to be part of like start a series, and it didn't do as well as I would have liked. But one of the things I learned was that I don't have time for promotion. I don't have time for the marketing things. I have time to write the best book I can write and do the editing process and those things.
Here, here.
And so yeah, so this really helps me out. And I enjoy, like I've been actively writing I guess semi-professionally since 2013, and getting my way in anthologies and short stories and stuff like that, and kind of spinning my wheels with trying to I don't know, just publish randomly. And that was mostly working out, but I'd reached the point where, okay, I should take this to the next level. So working with Michael really satisfies that for me. I get to have a great experience interacting with fans and, writing a story that people are going to read. Like that's, you bust your ass writing something and then it just disappears in the ether, even if you get great reviews, and it's like you've got 90 days, then it goes away. But it also helps. I don't know. I'm just enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. Like is it constrictive to work inside somebody else's world? Like I would say that Michael makes that pretty easy, because it's not like I come up with an idea and he's like, nope, that won't work. It's more like, well, let's see how it could work, and let's take a look at how this might fit in everything else. And then ultimately it always comes back. What I've learned a lot from is, what are the fans going to like, and it'll definitely tell me like, nah, they won't like that, so we got to take a look at, how to do it. And one of the things I thought of from the very beginning is like, I want to write a good MD Cooper book. I don't want to necessarily write a James Aaron book that's going to like somehow fit into this. Right. So I don't have a lot of ego around that. So I guess maybe it's helped me that I didn't have I wasn't trying to like smash my, my readers into Michael's readers. I've been pretty lucky that Michael's readers have, seems like they've embraced the books. So I don't know. I'm in this weird place where I have a job that gives me a lot of personal fulfillment and pays too well. So I'm not leaving until I can, ride this train as long as I can. And I definitely want to be in this for the long game. So if we can do this for a while and it's, it works and people like the books, then it's working pretty well for me. So yeah.
Cool.
I think it'd be hard if you had an existing series and whatnot. That's something I didn't have coming into it.
Okay. That's cool.
I have a question for James too, as another writer to a writer. What do you most want your readers to take away from your work?
I want them to have a good time. We're writing books that are entertaining, and I struggle because I have a lot of ideas about military fiction and writing about people that go to war and things like that, and doing it in an entertaining way is actually kind of, I shouldn't say that, doing it in a way that that limits the seriousness of what it is something that keeping it fun. I have to think about that. And I know maybe that sounds dumb, but it's hard writing just like a G.I. Joe episode. I want the characters to feel about the fact that we're going into battle and we got to live through that. And we have families and our kids have to see us leave. And, one of the core things that I felt going into, Lissa's Dream and the Sentience Wars was I was really thinking about a military family nowadays where you've got two soldiers that are both deploying and have to leave their kids, or make a decision about who's going to stay with the kids. And we live in a world now where it's entirely possible for dad to stay with the kids and mom to go to the Middle East for, a year and a half. And what's that like? What does that do to her as a mother? And so that was something that I wanted to not make central because the book still is fun. I want it to be a great read, but it was something that was important to me to get in there. And some people haven't liked it, but I've evolved as we go. So I guess that's something I really want to take away, that there are consequences. You can have writing about combat is exciting and fun, but there's still consequences. And I think that's something we can explore as well,
Mm-hmm.
You're really thinking like a parent. And I know you are a parent now, but were you thinking about the family thing before you knew Lyra was going to be coming into your life?
Yeah, I've got a 16-year-old son that is a big part of my story of being in the Army. That's why I left the Army, actually. My wife and I split up and I had to make a decision where I'd already missed a year of his life, and I knew that if I stayed in the Army. Like I've gone through command. I've gotten through pretty much what's considered the hard stuff for that part of your career. And so I could have actually gone into a whole other career field. But I just wasn't going to be away from him anymore. And so I had to really just kind of like reboot my life. And that was even a huge transition, which is something that kind of makes its way into the books too. Like a lot of times, especially because I was in the Army for so long, you get out and it's like being let out of prison. Like you just don't know how to interact with the world, and everything's kind of stupid, and people are stupid. They don't just focus on getting things done, and I have to think about your feelings. And when I went into my first management job, I'm talking with an employee who wasn't doing something ridiculous the way we needed it to do. Like the CD section didn't look like it should. And so I started doing this thing that in the Army, like, is very, I don't know if the video can see it, but we call it the blade hand, right? Even putting it up like this, like, here's what we need, make it like this, do this, why do we need to discuss it? And I upset that employee a lot. And so my boss came and told me that, why did you make this person cry? and I didn't think that I was like, I'm just telling them what they need to do. Why do I need to bring emotion into this? Why do I need to ask you how your day is before we jump into what needs to be done? And so I learned, that was something I learned a lot from. But that was a big change in my life, and I had to make that decision, and I'm really glad that I did. Now that I've got friends that are on the verge of retiring, or I just saw that I've got a friend that's about to become a colonel, and we were both captains together, and that blows my mind. He's going to be like a full bird colonel. And so that, I think being a parent has been like the core of all that. That's why I had to make the decisions I did, and I'm glad I did, but it certainly changed what it was like to be in the military. So it's something I think about a lot.
I didn't know you had a son, so thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah, it's been, he's a 16-year-old who loves D&D, and he's not interested in newborns. So he's kind of getting, he'll like hold Lyra out like this kind of, and like, oh, baby,
what is this thing?
Right. But yeah, it's been crazy for me too, because I had pretty much selectively forgotten all the things that go into taking care of a newborn. And
that's a survival trait.
I was gonna
right.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably a good thing.
This is totally anecdotal, but it always comes to mind. I had this one friend. She has 4 sons, and she said that teenagers are nature's way of making you want to kick them out of the nest. Or they're telling you to stay with you forever. Then they become teenagers, and you're like, go. So anyway,
so my son.
Well, I have 3 sons, and I've yet to have that. My oldest is 8, so I'm a little way off that.
You don't have the stay reaction. You don't have the go reaction. Which one?
I have the stay reaction at the moment.
I know. Well, that's the thing. He's getting, like, I've got 2 years or so, and he's getting college stuff, and it's kind of freaking me out a little bit. But we got to take we took a short story writing class last summer with Nina Hoffman, who's a awarded author in the area, and so he writes like 3 short stories, and has fun with it. And he's like, "Yeah, Dad, this writing thing's pretty easy. I don't know why you make it seem so hard."
Oh my
I'm like, "You little bastard!" But
You're like, you try writing more words.
right, exactly. Get some reviews.
Try 100,000.
And get some reviews. That's yeah. Yeah, now take that
plotline for longer than a few pages.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions for James? Anything else they want to ask him? I want to get to the fan ones too before we go on for too long.
I'll do the fan ones.
So the
Fan question.
Fans.
Well, this was one for Michael. So David Wilson asks, where do you get your technical and scientific ideas, and are they based on fact or fantasy?
So I don't think I touched on this too much in the previous one, but when I read a lot of science fiction, a lot of times I read like they're describing technology that we've already surpassed in the modern time, and they'll talk about certain types of weapons or things, even medical science. And like, we've actually progressed past that now. We can grow a new one of those if we really had to. It's expensive, but it could be done. And so I want to create technology that was going to be so far in the future that we wouldn't surpass it in my lifetime, hopefully. Was kind of my goal. So I did a lot of research on the technology to make sure things were accurate and made sense. And then I extrapolated. I said, okay, then what would we do? And then what would we do? So I think that by and large, everything in Aeon 14 is based on actual extrapolations of real science, not on fantasy. Probably the most fantasy thing in Aeon 14 is negative energy and exotic energy that is used for things like forged Vader gates and whatnot. It's sort of postulated that these may exist. I'm getting feedback from somebody. I'm not sure who it is. I might randomly mute people. I'm going to mute Jen just to see if it's coming from her. All right. And I'm not getting the feedback anymore. It was Jen. She looks so upset right now, but you can't see her because the video won't switch to her because she's muted. You can unmute when you can talk, Jen. I'm probably going to cut that out. Or maybe not, and you guys will all get to see this little outtake. Yeah, so I really wanted to make science that was gonna work as humanity progressed, so that when my grandchildren read these books, they're gonna be like, well, that's stupid. We've already got that, and you're writing like they invented it 2,000 years in the future. So that's my hope. Who knows how well that will pan out. But yeah, I guess basically Aeon 14 makes some assumptions. One of the assumptions is that the universe will eventually contract and we'll have the big crunch, and that might be science fantasy because it's like we have no freaking clue. I assume that supersymmetrical string theory is correct, and that we have shadow particles and quantum physics and stuff like that wouldn't happen if those things aren't real. I also assume that dark matter is more than just dust, which it might just be dust. We'll find that one out probably before too long. But maybe not. And then the dark energy exists and the 0-point energy exists. Those might be like the most fantasy things because they're sort of like they're not fringe science, not like crazy fringe science, but they're like we may never really know type science because we have no way to really test some of these things. At least we don't yet, or no one's told me if we do. So that's my really long-winded answer. So basically everything really does come from science or extrapolations on science.
But isn't the key there, like, it seems like the hard part in writing or developing a story is actually, okay, we have this cool thing that may or may not be true, but how do we come up with the rules around it so at least it makes sense for the characters? And is that something you spend a lot of time thinking about, or how do we set our guidelines on either side?
Yeah, I did want to think about. I did limit a lot of the tech that I thought would make humans unrelatable. Like one of the things I did decide to do is I wanted to make that so that the virtual interactions were sort of casual, because you can imagine in the future that some people will just spend their entire lives living in VR, and it'll be like the gamer show we saw where you can just take over bodies and you're just sitting on in your couch at home and you're just using other bodies, human or otherwise, to wander around, or you just live entirely in real Sims. Or something like that, and that's what does happen. But I didn't want to write about it, so I wrote all my sort of VR interactions to almost be sort of just casual ways where people basically toss gifts at each other into their minds, type of thing. And that was a rule I put in because otherwise the books would become they would be a lot less relatable, and they wouldn't be about characters doing things that I found to be terribly interesting. So there was stuff like that, and then I did put a lot of rules into how much energy you could actually wander around with. That keep people from having super powerful weapons and stuff like that. For example, like a railgun that fires a 5-gram pellet at 10 kilometers per second will release about twice as much energy as an American household consumes every year with each round. So you think to yourself, like, that's like, have you ever saw someone short out an electrical socket? Now imagine that for an entire year. Type of thing. Like, that's how much energy we're talking about coming from just one round from a railgun. So obviously, I wanted to make sure that people couldn't just do that sort of thing willy-nilly, because that changes combat so much. It would just basically make it so that you just would obliterate a city in a matter of minutes and be like, well, we're all done here now, off we go. So I did limit some of that stuff too. I think it works. Every now and then I make mistakes. I'm sure I make something way more powerful than I should have.
Well, I think it is really important to say, hey, the characters and what interests people, like these characters in this world, the characters and the human experience is the important thing, right? Like, because I can fully see a point where we just don't even understand folks, honestly, in the 2,000 years from now. It's hard enough to try and understand Sumerian texts, but that's something that's really appealed to me about Aeon 14 from the beginning, is that you still know, like, people are still cracking jokes even with their AI, and still doing things that I fully understand, even though it's actually very complicated when you think about it.
Yeah.
So
the guy that did really good at that is a writer named David Eddings. If you guys ever read stuff, he had the Sparhawk books, which are still some of my favorite books. They're fantasy books, but his characters, fully half of his books are just the characters wisecracking at each other, and trying to get out of making supper. Like, there's a whole thread throughout the whole books where, like, they're obviously always on the march as soldiers and very small bands and whatnot, and they're always like, they're supposed to rotate who makes supper every night, and there's like guys like who are like constantly tricking and lying and whatnot to try and get out of making supper, which ties into what James is talking about. Like, this is stuff people do. People are always goofing around, and we also, because we like to make everybody else smile, so we say stupid shit and stuff like that. So I think that's what people will still be doing. If not, then the future sounds really boring, and I want to write about that.
Right. Exactly.
So Jim Dean had a bunch of questions here. I'm going to ask these. Well, anybody can answer these, but I'm going to ask them of James first, since it's James' hot seat day. So I'll sort of combine the first three. Like, what locations or time of day do you prefer writing, which might be different than when you actually can write? Can you write a lot of noise around you, and what's your shortest and longest productive writing session?
Let's see. So location and time of day. I actually prefer writing in the morning, and I've got a room. Well, I don't know. I wrote most of the first three books at the kitchen table. The thing was just trying to limit distractions, because get up at 5, take care. Like, we have 2 cats and a dog that constantly want things in the morning, and then limiting the dog walking up, wanting to go outside, and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I refinished the room for the baby that has been a good writing room for me, because I can close the door. And then I got some noise canceling headphones, which help a lot. So I listen to music typically while I'm writing. And then in the morning time, like usually between like 5 and 7 have been most productive for me. But I think that's just because I can be alone and focus. But recently, so one thing that just doesn't work since the baby came along is that's when 5 is when I get up to take care of the baby for like 3 hours so my wife can sleep. So that's when I watch a lot of TV now. But so what I've found is I have to, like, I've been writing at work, or after I get off work, I'll go and spend like an hour in the university library and write there, because it's been difficult to write at home, because as soon as I come home, I want to help take care of the baby. So that's something that's had to kind of shift, and I'm still sort of working that out. Like, one thing I've really discovered is that schedule is really important to me when it comes to being able to get the work done. So I'm figuring those things out now that I've got a new situation. But I will say that this has become more and more like a job. Andrew was asking what it's like to work within Michael's world. It's kind of like a job. Like, I put in the hours and I do the work, and that's what makes it. Like, that's what gets it done. It's not like I think I'll write now and sit down and do that. Like, no, I'm going to put in these hours. I'm going to do this every day. And I find that actually helps me. Like, the words come. They might not come at first. And then, once I force myself to start doing it, I don't wait for inspiration. I guess that makes sense.
That's like Harlan Ellis, of course, passed away this past week. Ellis. And he actually used to do this thing where he would go and sit in bookstore windows and write all day long.
Oh, wow.
He's trying to show people that writing is a job. It's a thing that you do. Yeah. And you have to say, now I'm going to go write the words, and I have to get them done, because otherwise I don't eat. It's not something that people sort of do on mountaintops, with the Zephyr playing nearby or something like that.
Yeah. Waiting for the muse to strike.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that's apropos. It's like you've got to find a way to do it, and you've got to just sit down and do it. Maybe I'll ask this one of someone else, because this one could be fun. I'm going to ask Jenny, because Jenny hasn't had a lot of stuff coming at her. So Jenny, what percentage of your first drafts for a chapter gets scrapped and or largely rewritten versus makes it out just as you wrote it?
I tend to keep most of everything that I write. I tend to write really short. I know earlier you were talking about plotting and pantsing. I tend to plot out the whole novel, and then I start writing and I totally lose track of where I'm supposed to be, and I go off on a different tangent and just end up thinking, and I look back at the plot, you know, a week later and think, oh, that's what I was supposed to be writing. But when it comes to redrafting, I tend to add to what I've already written. So I suppose the answer is I keep 100% and then I add maybe another 20-30% on top of that, which is a lot of world building stuff or characters speaking more fully to each other rather than monosyllabic answers and this kind of thing. So yeah, I'm not one of those writers who writes 200,000 words and then throws 50,000 words out. It's actually the other way around for me.
That's cool. I always feel like those folks that throw away a lot of words are like, it seems so inefficient. You know, like it'd be like,
Yeah.
It'd be like
It's
if I
incredible.
So I would feel like really annoyed with myself if it had taken me hours and hours and hours to write something and it wasn't good enough to keep. So I think I try and write well first time.
Yeah, I think it's like any job too. You get better at as the longer you do it. And now, Jen, you write nonfiction professionally as well, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I think that's honed my skills a lot, right, because the longer you take to write an article, the less you're getting paid for it per hour.
Yeah.
So you tend. So I think it's made me very efficient. Yeah.
That's like also like if you had a landscaper that came to your house and they this isn't to bash any writers because it's hard and everybody has their own process. But if the landscaper came to your house and they laid down the lawn and then they ripped up half the lawn and laid it down again, and then they ripped up half that and laid it down again, probably like, this guy's not a very good landscaper. Why is he doing all this work? But again, if you're just getting started, you know, like if anything, like I've, you know, when I built my first desk, I do reclaimed wood construction. It was bad, and I had to redo large portions of it. But now, if I build a desk and I have to redo part of it, I'm like, well, I didn't do a very good job. I just wasted all that wood.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to answer that one? Whether or not they plot their pants, or I'm not sorry. Was that? No, sorry. Yeah. How much you rewrite, not plot their pants. James or Lisa?
I wish I had time to, you know, rewrite a bunch of. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't wish I do because I've gotten better at being very intentional about what I write. Which, again, maybe I sound like a robot. Like this is how I lay it out, and this is what I, you know, for each single thing. But that helps me to make sure I'm not just, you know, randomly writing whatever, and then to see what happens. Like the other thing is doing character work and thinking about how the characters respond to things. That saves me a lot of time too, because I'm not writing into the dark to figure out what a character would do. Like I know how the character would respond, and that saves me a lot of time as well.
I think the fact that you made just about everybody cry with Lissa's Flame means that no one thinks you're a robot.
I worry that I'm a robot. I guess that's enough.
No.
Yeah. I guess for myself, I've never been much of a rewriter. I've always kind of got it out the first time. And then when I wrote my first book, Jill told me it was garbage, my wife. She said much more nicely than that, but that was the message that I received. But she was good at describing why it was bad. And one of the things that I do miss out a lot on first is a lot of my characters are, they're kind of like what Jenny was describing. They sort of say what they need to say to move things along. But then like, as I come back, I'm like, they probably wouldn't say that. They would probably actually say something more, or they would make fun of something that someone just said. And so I flesh it out and I add a lot more to it that way. So I'm in the same boat where I add a lot as I rewrite. I probably add about 10 to 15% more throughout the entire book as I go through. Maybe not quite as much as Jenny was doing, with 50% more. And then the other thing is that a lot of times I don't describe the setting. Like they're in a corridor, they're walking along. And I don't do that too much because I'm like, you guys don't want to be belabored with the color of the walls all the time and stuff like that. But sometimes I'm like, maybe I should like give a bit of a setting as to this where they are exactly right now. So I'll describe like a room they go into and the details around that room. So it typically just gets longer, to be honest.
One thing I wanted to say too is I've really learned to trust the editorial process. That I think something to also say about Aeon 14 that really appeals to me is there's a whole team that goes into making the books. So even if there's something that I'm not sure about, or I'm like, yeah, I wish this could be different, I kind of wait to hear what Michael's going to think, or T's going to think, or Jen, or now Lisa, that she started helping out. But then also if they come back and say like, yeah, this doesn't work, and it's something I liked, I'm still ready to like adjust it if I need to, So it's a team effort that goes into it. So I don't throw anything away unless somebody really tells me, like, yeah, this doesn't work at all. Why are they doing this?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most collaborative processes I've ever been involved with, and it's fantastic that way. I might throw a little bit out, but it's more a situation where I'm like Michael. I will expand on things afterward. Sometimes I do what I call an environment pass. So I write the dialogue and then I go back in and I fill in the environment. And if I have any questions, again, since it's so collaborative, I can like put in a little comment off to the side saying, hey guys, what do you think? Does this really fit here? Should I change it to this? And Jen she's a fantastic editor. And Michael's a fantastic person to collaborate with. So there.
Cool. And Andrew's soaking this up because I don't know if everybody knows, but Andrew's going to be writing an Aeon 14-ish as well this year.
Ish. Well, it's blame Bob's Bar, but it's a crossover. Amanda's coming over to your universe for an adventure.
Yeah. So yeah, you're writing.
I was so excited when I found out, Andrew. I was so excited.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, Amanda's coming to Aeon 14, so I think you're writing an Aeon 14 is how this is.
I basically am, yes.
Yeah.
But she's coming back to mine. Tanis is going to come back to mine, isn't she?
Yeah, Tanis will visit. Tanis or maybe Jessica. We'll see how it pans out.
Whatever.
We don't know when it actually ends up happening, but we're gonna start writing that before too long. And your character's last name is Page, right? It's Amanda Jane Page is your character, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Because on the group today, someone actually in the thread where people are talking about what character they would love to come rescue them the most. Like someone picked Amanda over Tanis.
Really?
Yeah. If you're kidnapped, who would you call on? They selected Amanda. They said because she could teleport. Probably very useful.
True. Yeah.
So if you're kidnapped, the person just teleports you away, and you're done.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
Very efficient. I have to say, this is something which, given that it's kind of going to be set in the Aeon 14 universe, and what James was saying about, meeting fan expectations, given that my character is coming from a urban fantasy, space fantasy universe where magic is real, coming into Aeon 14, which is very, very much hard science fiction with some hand-wavy bits around about, it is a worry. I wonder what some of the fans might think, but I'm just going to go, it's fun. It's a side story. It's not the main plot.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and Andrew, you can lean into the whole indistinguishable from magic thing. You can just,
yes,
say that it's
absolutely, yeah,
so many years ahead that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that it's the whole so advanced that it basically looks like magic kind of thing. Yeah. So, and you got the whole dark layer kind of, the quantum stuff and all, the FTL in Aeon 14, all that kind of stuff, which my magic system
James
is.
And I don't have the FTL.
Okay, well, depends what era you're in. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I mean, my magic system is kind of based on that, a kind of unknown fifth element type thing, which they use. So maybe it comes from that, and she's just able to use it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's kind of how I was thinking we'll tap into it. Say, like, you're just tapping into 0-point energy and quantum particle.
It's that kind. You could kind of say, well, she's partially ascended or something in Aeon 14 terms. Or something.
She's just gonna be an L0 human. She's gonna be something like a 1.5 or whatever.
There you go.
It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. Yeah, it's going to be, and to be honest, I mean, like, you got characters like Jessica. Jessica can shoot lightning from her hands.
Yes.
Right.
And also has an electron beam in her left arm now. So, for all intents and purposes, Jessica looks like a fantasy character that's probably more powerful than a lot of fantasy characters, So
absolutely.
She give like, the Emperor Palpatine a run for his money in the whole, like, let's zod each other game. So it really does become, and Tanis now, I mean, I don't want to spoil people who haven't read too far, but Tanis has got some pretty uber abilities too at the point where she's at in the story.
Well, I'm just about to start reading Attack on Thebes, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're gonna get the big reveal there, so we can't even spoil Andrew. So be careful.
Yes, don't spoil me.
Spoiler.
Jen has it so we use Slack to communicate. Jen has a thing in the Slack channel where if you have a spoiler or it's got a character, I forget, who is it now?
It's River's song from Doctor Who.
Right. Yeah, she's got a rather large revolver in her hand, and it says spoilers. You know? It's very threatening. I'm behind on Doctor Who right now, to be honest. I have this goal of going back and starting Doctor Who at the beginning and then watching it all the way through. But
It's
I did this thing.
not worth starting at the very beginning, if I say so myself.
Well, I used to watch as a kid all the time, and I really liked it. So
Okay.
I love watching it more to see like how they did the special effects and like what cooking pan they turned into a robot and whatnot, like that kind of stuff. I mean, the Daleks have become this, iconic thing, but that's a garbage can with some light bulbs on it. I love that part. And plungers.
What's inside the Dalek that matters, James?
are they Daleks? I always thought they were Daleks. Oops.
I did too.
Daleks.
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 Yeah.
In the English language, when you've got a vowel and a consonant, another vowel, the first vowel becomes long.
In multisyllable words, yes.
Yeah, that's what this is. Dalek.
Right, I know, but I think they're borrowing it from a different language, or it's from a different culture. They're not necessarily,
But we all pronounce Aeon 14 wrong, so we can't talk.
Yes,
Right.
but also that. Yes.
That's what I have to make it. I always myself, I'm going to call it Aeon 14 and do it correctly, but I say Aeon 14 and it doesn't matter. It's never going to change.
It doesn't
Never
matter.
gonna-
Yeah.
I have that with my books because the majors in my books, I call them Magi, and I know that's not how you pronounce it. It's Magi, but I call them Magi.
You also use
better.
You also use the plural singular a little bit differently for your Magi.
I mix it up sometimes. That's an accident. It's not done on purpose.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was just like you're like, no, I'm going my own way. You need a Jen in your life, Andrew.
I do sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Jen
do.
will not let that stuff slide. Not that just your current editor, but what I had to learn when I was writing is I need an editor that can deal with the sheer volume of mistakes I make, which is not easy to do because some editors are used to writers that write much cleaner, like Lisa and James write much, and actually Jenny too, especially Zen. All write much cleaner prose than I do. I'm just flailing at the keyboard the whole time, as evidenced by the it's thing last time. Although sometimes Word autocorrects them wrong on me because Word is dumb. But anyway, I make a lot of errors, and I'm glad I found Jen because Jen is capable of dealing with the raw volume of errors. And I'm sure at this point she has like a cheat sheet. She's like, look for all the times Michael does this, look for all the times Michael does that, check for that, check for that.
I don't, but I should start one.
Wow, you can all just keep it all in your head.
Like, I never did that, and I'll be like, actually, you've done it exactly 43 times.
Oh no, don't keep this list then. This is a terrible idea.
But then by the same token, that's exactly the reason why you churn out so much volume, far more than I could ever do. So I might be cleaner, but no, you're the one that's churning out the books. So
There are a lot of words. Yeah. I've gone through.
You recently told me, Michael, that on a ship or a space station, they're not called walls, ceilings, or floors. They're called decks, bulkheads, and overheads. And then I was reading the last book of yours I read. One of the characters refers to it as a ceiling at one point, or it's mentioned or described as a ceiling.
I think I make some exceptions. One of them are on planets. On planets, they're described.
It was on a space. I'm sure it was on a space station or a spaceship.
And there could be mistakes.
The character made the mistake, not Michael.
Oh, maybe it's a character. It's a good for the character.
Yeah.
If the character is not used to being on a ship, they would also not refer to it in ship terms.
True.
And
I'll forgive you. You
should have pointed it out. I would have fixed it. But in the hotel, in shore leave, they call them hallways actually as well in a couple of spots. But I did it on purpose. I'm like,
that's fine.
It's a hallway inside your room in a hotel. I think that would just be a hallway. That only passageway is just so many letters, hall, it's just so nice and short. So we've gone on for just about forever here now. Does anyone have anything else they want to ask Andrew or James?
Me?
Yeah. No, we're going for James. Anyone have anything else they want to ask James, and then we'll wrap it up.
So James, what's it like writing with a newborn?
It's been hard. I'll just say that it's hard. I wish I actually had a way to write one-handed. I pulled out the headset I'm wearing is from dragon naturally speaking, because I have tried to do dictation and it just doesn't work for me. But I'm pretty good at doing the football hold, you know, and if you've seen that where you lay the baby across your arm. And I've started like, it's almost like, you know, doing barbell lifts again, because I'm just holding her like that all the time, which I can do. I can hold her like that for an hour, but I can't type with one hand, right? So like I've got a Moby wrap that I've done a couple sessions where I was holding her while she was sleeping and then typing, you know, like that. Yeah, but it's tough. I've just found that I need to write outside the house right now, which is, you know, I don't know if that's going to change. My friends with little kids tell me that, yeah, that doesn't change. So I don't know, but otherwise she's really calm, so I can't really complain about anything. I will say I love to get sleep, and so I would average like at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep before she came, and now if I get 4 hours, I'm pretty good. And I wrote a book back when my son I was kind of going through the same thing, and I go back and look at it, and it's like the craziest crap that I would get up, you know, sleepy and write and just come up with. Jen was asking about where the ideas come from, and like there was some stuff in there where like, I don't know if anybody knows the band Pavement, but they have some weird lyrics and like just weird stuff in there, and that's kind of happening again. I'm trying not to do it too much, but I'll go back and read something and like, what? Where did that come from? I don't even remember writing that. That's been kind of the weirdest thing about it. The sleep deprivation really brings some weirdness.
If there are any mistakes in Alyssa's flame, we'll blame sleep deprivation.
I know. Yeah, but I'm getting there. I mean, I'll get the rhythm figured out again. So it's just a transition.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure we could all hang out and just jaw forever, but
we got to save something for next week.
we do. Yeah. Right. Lisa's probably getting really tired of sitting on the floor.
with Cat.
Yeah, with Cat.
With Cat.
It's great. It's like we're hanging out in your living room.
Yeah. We were talking about this before we came on, but in my household we call cats that largely call them fur turkeys, and I think Lisa's got a couple of
fur turkey. Yeah. We here in Eugene we have like wild turkeys that run around like around the campus. So you'll be driving down the street and there'll just be some stupid turkey lying in the middle of the street, and then you get out. Like this actually happened to me last week. I get in I park. I get out to go see if the turkey's alive or not, and then all of a sudden look over and there's like 5 turkeys on the sidewalk looking at me. You know? and the other turkey just like gets, you know, pops up and then runs off.
Are they the big turkeys?
Yeah. I'll have to put them in the Facebook group, because there are. In fact, the community college has another group of turkeys, and they're huge. I mean, for wild turkeys, they're typically not very big, but these ones were like in full plumage, and they kind of stalk you. Like you never quite know they're watching you, you know. And the thing about turkeys, I mean, because I have chickens, I know this. Like, I will never let a rooster be aggressive. You just can't, you know. And turkeys are kind of the same way, but they're so stupid that I've looked at raising turkeys. Like, turkeys will actually, if you let them be out in the rain, they'll just lift their heads and drink until they drown. Like, turkeys are that dumb. You have to actively make sure your turkeys don't kill themselves. And so it's always amazing to me that we have these wild turkeys that have managed to survive.
Yeah. I guess I think the slightly smarter ones.
I know. Well, I think they know, because if they're out in the country, they would be dinner. But in the city, like, nobody's going to shoot them. So it's
true.
Yeah, but there's cars. People don't tend to stop for turkeys.
Yeah.
We've got here in New England, I would say the turkeys are over 1 meter tall in New England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the heads are probably like would be about here. I guess you can't see. Not to me and my body, but like around my waist, around my chest is how high their heads would come. They're massive creatures.
Wow.
And,
we have aggressive geese on campus too. Like, we actually had one goose that was chasing students, so we had to get the police out to corral a goose and move it away from the residence hall, because it was being aggressive, and the students were, you know, called in worried about it.
So
I'm not going to say they're afraid of it, but
when there are turkeys and geese in the next Aeon 14 book, now you're going to know why.
That's what I should have said. I meant to say that when I brought to Aeon 14. I brought corgis to Aeon 14. So
and you brought chickens.
I did bring chickens. I think that people would have chickens in space. Why wouldn't you?
I think you're right. I think you can.
Corgis and poultry. That's all
I know.
Need.
I want to see a chicken in 0G.
Foul. I guess that'd be foul.
There's a police force. I think it's in China, maybe somewhere else in Southeast Asia, where they actually instead of using dogs, they use geese.
In Germany on Patriot sites during the Cold War, they used geese. Geese are incredibly, like, they hear and they will patrol an area. And so you would still see the sites that had, I mean, most of them all had dual fences anyway, but that was like, they call it the goose run because that's where the geese would be outside the perimeter.
That's a new one on me. I've heard of bomb sniffing pigs. Because they use pigs to search for truffles, so they've got really good. I've heard of bomb sniffing pigs. They use them in Israel.
I believe it.
Never
Attack turkeys.
geese.
All of this stuff coming to you soon in the next Aeon 14 book.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great, because like when I was in Kuwait, we actually had this sonic perimeter system that was supposed to catch people crossing the perimeter, but because the dust was so bad, we could never use it because it was always going off all the time, and so you keep getting false alarms. And so geese would work great for something like that. Not that you could use them in Kuwait, but they would have things like that. In Europe, they would be fine.
Yeah, Kuwait's not
Sometimes
exactly a friendly scenario.
Yeah. No.
Sometimes it's fun to work super, super low tech into the books because, the tech is so high that something low tech can kind of slide under the radar, so to speak.
Absolutely. Well, I think that happened in one of the Tanis books where they couldn't use their nano because of wind. It was just too windy.
Mm-hmm.
To use a lot of their advanced tech.
The nano cloud kept dispersing.
Yeah. Away. Yeah. They couldn't even use regular drones because it was too windy in the storm.
Yeah.
So they couldn't use all their tech. And you think about a lot of the fancy tech that's out there, a good rainstorm is going to nullify all of that, or wind and dust in the desert.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap up now. So thanks everyone for coming in. You've probably heard of us talking about animals now, or maybe you're not. Maybe
Animals in space.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks everybody for showing up. All the other editors, writers,
Cover artists.
Artists.
What's the word? I kept thinking cover author.
Cover author.
Maybe. Sure.
There you go. Cover author. Yes. Thanks for joining everybody. It's been a blast, and we will see you guys next time.
Who's
See
on
you
the
later.
hot seat next
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.